everyone, I'm Kristen Rabideau, and this is Catholic Schoolhouse, an overview in hopefully 15 minutes or less. Let's talk first about Catholic Schoolhouse materials. If you go to CatholicSchoolhouse.com, there's so much to read and so much good information, but I discovered that there's not a whole lot of YouTube videos out there about Catholic Schoolhouse. So this is a quick overview. I would give it a review, except I'm kind of biased. If you notice, my last name matches the last name of one of the co-founders of Catholic Schoolhouse, Kathy Rabideau. And so this is just a quick overview about the materials, chapters, using Catholic Schoolhouse at home, and the new virtual chapter that is brand new for the 2020-2021 school year. So first, let's talk a little bit about materials. The most important part of doing Catholic Schoolhouse is having the tour guide. You'll see this is the tour guide. And what it is it's your whole school year broken down into weeks, and it has one page per week. And for a lot of homeschoolers, this is a little bit scary. What does it mean, only one page per week? Catholic Schoolhouse is a classical approach to homeschooling. And what that means is that it is memory-based for your grammar students. Instead of having a traditional workbook, the tour guide is going to have nuggets of information for all 8 subjects for each week that you build off of using whatever types of materials you like. Now that might sound like it's not a complete curriculum, and that is true in some ways. You do need your own math program because math is leveled for your students' abilities. Every year is different. It builds on itself, right, incrementally. And also phonics, reading, and spelling, and writing. Those are the 3 main things that you're going to need to supplement with another curriculum that is more inclusive and probably more traditional. It has stuff to do every day. Now the rest of the information you really can build off of Catholic Schoolhouse. And what I mean by that is your art, your science, your religion, your history, your geography, all of those can be built off of Catholic Schoolhouse. So here, this is what one of the pages of the tour guide looks like. That's it. That's everything for the whole week. And what it is it's a concentrated nugget of information about, say, for science, insects this week. So they'll memorize this sentence or 2 sentences about insects. And then the rest of the week, you build off of that however you want. Now, there's tons of ideas on the Catholic Schoolhouse blog. You can also use Pinterest to find things. You could even substitute or supplement with other books that kind of go along with the topics in the tour guides. Like zoology is Q1 of this year. So you could find a zoology textbook if you like to, or you could do it Charlotte Mason style and add lots of living books about zoology. You could unschool it and go outside and find animals and talk about them yourselves. There's lots of different ways to use Catholic Schoolhouse as your spine, and you have that concentrated information that they're memorizing, so you know they're not missing something important for all of these different subjects, and it gives you something to build your curriculum around. So, besides getting the tour guide, which is 24 weeks, broken down into 1 week per each page of 8 subjects: art, history, religion, math, science, Latin, language arts, geography, music, and a saint. Other than that book, you will want to get the CDs or the Catholic Schoolhouse app, which is available on Apple or Android or Microsoft, and also the history cards. The history cards are awesome. You'll notice when you look in the tour guide that there are 5 different timeline events on the side. So what they do is they go through these different timelines for each tour. Tour 1 is all American history. Tour 2 begins with creation and goes into Renaissance. Tour 3 goes from the end of Renaissance to modern times. And they memorize this timeline. 5 events every week. And for each of those events, there's a history card. The history card has real art on the front of it, either historical art or something that is going to be easily recognizable in other textbooks, things like that. It's not silly clip art, even though I love clip art. It's real art or real pictures from the events. And then on the back, you'll have the title and then a description about that event in history. These are fun for reading to your kids. They can be helpful when you're teaching about them, or you can play lots of fun games with this. More about that on the Catholic Schoolhouse website if you want to see it. Now, those are the 3 main things you need: the tour guide, the music, either in CD or app, and the history cards, and you have what you need to build your whole curriculum off of after you buy math and reading, writing, and spelling. Now, if you're doing this at home, additional supplies you can buy are the science guide and the art guide. If you're in a chapter, they will be using these when you meet once a week in the chapter. So you don't need these if you're going to be part of a chapter. So next, let's talk a little bit about chapters. Catholic Schoolhouse has chapters all over the United States and even in a couple other countries. It's expanding rapidly, and it's probably coming to a city near you soon, hopefully. The chapters meet once a week for 24 weeks, typically 3 weeks on and 1 week off. And that 1 week off is used for a field trip or maybe just a down day to get some extra catch-up time built into it, and also to stretch the 24 weeks over a whole school year. When you meet, you usually start with a pledge of allegiance and some chorus time and a prayer, and then they split up into their classes. When they go into their classes, one class will be memory work focused. They'll spend 2 hours, your grammar students or your youngest group of students will spend 2 hours learning the memory work. This key informational nuggets of goodness, learning it through games, through songs, through fun activities, whatever the teacher has come up with to incorporate this memory work and get it stuck inside their heads. The next part of Catholic Schoolhouse chapter is the science and art, which is why if you're doing it at home, you don't need these books. But when you meet once a week in your chapters, the science tutor will use the lessons that are completely spelled out in this book. For the example, this one is week 4 of tour 1, and it's all about an owl pellet dissection. So the science tutor will have 30 minutes to do a science lesson with the students. Then they will go to art, potentially. The order might be different. They might do science then art, or art then science, or whatever. Then they'll do 30 minutes of art. Again, these lessons are completely spelled out in the art book, along with full color page pictures of the artists that you're studying. And your art tutor will guide them through an art project using this. Those are chapters. Chapters are also great because they often form groups to do Mother's Nights Out. They do field trips together. There's support from other Catholic families that are just like you, that are trying to come together to enrich their students' homeschooling experience. Now, do you have to be part of a chapter to use Catholic Schoolhouse? No, you don't. You can totally do it at home. In fact, my family did it at home for 2.5 years before we started a chapter in Coleman, Alabama. And now we've moved again, so we're doing Catholic Schoolhouse at home again, even after being in a chapter. If you're going to do it at home, I recommend you do get the art book, and you can do these lessons at home, and the science book, and you can do those experiments at home. And you can totally do all of the same stuff that you would do in a chapter at home if you wanted to. You just lack the community and the fun that you get from knowing other people doing the same material as you, and the camaraderie and the friendships that you get. The community is really what chapters provide for you, is that Catholic homeschooling community that can be supportive and helpful, and you can get together and do lots of fun stuff together. Now, also, there is a virtual chapter starting up this year. I think that early September is week 1 of the tour 1 of Catholic Schoolhouse for our virtual chapter. I'll put a link in the description below, and you can learn all about how we are creating a virtual community of people. Like I said, the best part about chapters is the community you get. And with the COVID-19 happening this year, there's more and more people that are being forced to stay home, try to avoid community events as much as possible because they might be immunocompromised or higher at risk, or be caring for someone who's higher at risk. So to support those families, Catholic Schoolhouse wants them to have community as well, and we've created a virtual chapter that you can join and still connect with other Catholic families that are also doing Catholic Schoolhouse at home. Now, let's take a real quick closer look at the materials. I gave you a quick glimpse of the tour guide, but just a little bit more information about it. You'll see it's laminated on the front and the back. The back cover actually has a chart so you can keep track of which subjects and which weeks your students have mastered the material for. Mastery is what we're going for with the memory work. They memorize those nuggets and then they can build everything else off of that. Inside the book, you will find a yearly overview page. which lists the subjects for each topic. So science starts with zoology, then does weather, quarter 3 is anatomy, and then you finish off this year with electricity and magnetism, etc., etc. It lists every one of the subjects, more specifically what you're going to be learning about. Then there is a quarter overview, and then it goes one page at a time through 24 weeks of material. And you'll notice these pages, I don't know if you can tell on the video, but they're cardstock, they're not flimsy, they're pretty sturdy, and they're blank on the back, which can be handy if you want to do some quick lesson planning on the back. Maybe you've looked at week 1 and you're like, oh, I have a St. Kateri book that I want to read my children. I'm just going to jot down the books that I'm going to read to my students on the back of that paper. So that can be handy to have a blank page, or maybe you just leave it blank because you don't like writing in books. That's fine. But it goes through all 24 weeks of Catholic Schoolhouse material. All the memory work is in this, and all that memory work is set to very snazzy, very addictive, very stick-in-your-head kind of music that you can get on the CDs or on the app. Let's take a quick look at the inside of the art book. I mentioned that it has full color pictures by artists, but if you break down the year, there's 4 quarters in the book, and each quarter is divided into 2 sections. So they'll study a total of 8 different types of artist or artwork. The first artwork this year is Native American art, because we are studying United States geography and history in Tour 1. So there's pictures of the art for you to discuss. That starts off with it. There's also a short description about that type of art or the artist's history in the beginning of that quarter or section of time or section of the book. And then the art projects themselves have an overview, an objective, it lists the supplies you need, it lists the prep work you need to do. It gives background information for each project. So what do I talk to my students about before we even start this project? This gives you a little bit of that information. And then instructions, step by step, how to do this project. What to say to your students, what kind of questions to ask, guidance for completing this project themselves. And it goes 24 weeks of artwork that aligns with Catholic Schoolhouse tour guide. The science guide is very similar. It has a table of contents, which is sort of like the overview. And then it lists a master supply sheet, which is super helpful. If you want to just go ahead and buy all of your science supplies for the entire year, they're all in here for you. So you don't have to add them all up over the whole year and then try to buy them. They're all here already listed. And then each week has similar information, an objective, some background, the supplies that you need, preparatory work that the teacher or parent can do, and instructions step by step how to do that activity. These are all really fun. They give your students some exposure to scientific method and also a lot of other skills that they have to learn as they develop. Now, Catholic Schoolhouse at home works best for your grammar students, but if you have older students, you really have to be part of a chapter to get the benefit. The classical approach really depends on having community for the discussion and the conversation, and that's really difficult to do within just your own family. We are depending on parents to do that anyways within their own family, but for those dialectic or middle schoolers and rhetoric or high schoolers, they really need other students their same age to talk to about these things, to develop their skills and to get feedback from other parents besides their own. And so that's why Catholic Schoolhouse is best for older students when you can be part of a chapter. I hope this has been helpful. I hope you learned a little bit about Catholic Schoolhouse, and I hope that wherever you are in your educational journey, whether it's public school, private school, homeschooling, or Catholic Schoolhouse plus anything else, I hope that God blesses you abundantly. Thanks for watching.